Jordan Addison is ready to go for the Giants, and it kind of changes everything. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day, each and every day. I appreciate my hashtag everydayers, and I appreciate anybody who's here, who's new, just looking for a quick preview of the Week 1 Vikings game. You have come to the right place, so welcome in. You can find Locked On Vikings Monday through Friday wherever you find your favorite shows, any podcast listening app, including SiriusXM, where you can also just search out Vikings there and find live broadcasts of all Vikings games, hometown broadcasts. Just search out Vikings on SiriusXM. You can also find this show on YouTube or Amazon Fire and Roku if you download the Locked On Minnesota Sports app. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, to win $50 instantly when you play any $5 play. We have so much to get to on this show. I have a brand new segment that we're going to do every single Friday, a rambling segment called The Zover Under, where my rabbits pick bets for you. Also, we have your bold predictions, a longtime favorite here on Locked On Vikings, but first things first. Got some news. Jordan Addison spoke in the locker room after practice on Thursday and basically confirmed that he was going to be good to go. He's got a high ankle sprain that he suffered in joint practices with the Cleveland Browns, but he is good to go. He is going to play. Jalen Nailor working off to the side. Kevin O'Connell also said that he has an ankle thing. We got to see what the deal is with that, but it seems like he's a little bit further behind, a little less likely to play. But Jordan Addison playing is huge in this game. If you listened to yesterday, my crossover episode with Locked On Giants with Pat Traina, we recorded that earlier in the week, so we didn't know any of this yet, any of like how Jordan Addison was progressing yet. But now we have that information, and if we assume that he is going to play like he says, that is awesome. That helps so much because of what we talked about in that episode. With Justin Jefferson possibly getting doubled all day long. Well, to double Justin Jefferson, we're not doubling his brother. To double Jefferson, you have to put a safety over the top of him. You basically have to have your safeties either playing quarters or halves. You can't really get a reliable double zone coverage wise out of like cover 3. You could do like cover 1 double 18. Like that could be that's like the nuclear option here, but that also makes for man-to-man single coverage everywhere else. And somebody like Jordan Addison should be able to punish that against a secondary that Giants fans are really worried about. And I don't know who you're going to get on who there, but that is also like punishable just by having another like viable weapon that's a deep threat. But against the coverages that you typically see when you double team or bracket, I guess I should say, which is how teams double. You don't really get the like full-on Julio Jones, 2 guys in press coverage on you. That doesn't really happen anywhere. That's why it's kind of famous when it does. But what you typically will get is a safety playing over the top and a corner playing an underneath zone in press alignment so that he can jam and then back off into his zone. And then if he goes deep past that jam, which is the risk of jamming somebody, then you got a deep zone who can pick it up. And without Addison or Hawkinson, like first, half of 2022, all Kevin O'Connell had were like zone beater concepts that everybody could then sort of fine tune their cover 2 to beat. And that's part of the impact that Hawkinson had when he came, and part of the impact that Addison had in 2023 was being able to make it so you can't just like tweak your cover 2 and fix things. So all of these coverages, cover 4, cover 2, are middle of field open coverages. That means you don't have like a free ranging, roving free safety. You have the field split in half. They're split field coverages, which means that deep overs, crossing routes, and especially deep posts are great at attacking those things. Those coverages split the field in half. So you'll have a lot of times a sort of coverage apparatus on one half, a coverage apparatus on the other half, one for the strong side, one for the weak side. And changing which is which by using a crossing route is a huge staple of why these McVay-Shanahan offenses even work in the first place. But in particular, Jordan Addison's superpower, the thing that he is best at, is the post route. Up the middle, being fast. That is how he has gotten so many touchdowns. That's how he got a whole bunch of his major touchdowns in 2023. That is how he's gotten open for deep shots that maybe some of those quarterbacks didn't hit. That is the 1A, his signature right hook is his post route. And post routes are great against the coverages that double Justin Jefferson. They leave the middle of the field open so that they can double him on that side, and then a post route just goes and attacks that opening. It's very simple stuff. Just the threat of that, and the Giants know all this, so just the threat of that might force the Giants to back off their doubling a little bit and give Justin Jefferson a few more opportunities one-on-one. But before we get into all the gambling predictions and stuff, I do want to mention what I was going to talk about before that news dropped, which is we are now embarking on the Get Sam Darnold Paid year. On the Minnesota Football Party, which you can find Mondays, and you can find me on Mondays and Thursdays over at Locked On Minnesota Sports. We talked about this a little bit with like the expectations for Sam Darnold, and it does seem like the main goal of this season is to get Sam Darnold paid. This is a season that even going up the way that Kwesi talks about it, the way that O'Connell talks about it, because they aren't developing the rookie the way that they thought because he got hurt. This season is suspended in midair and is sort of one that you're just sort of trying to survive. Every team goes through this from time to time. It's not the end of the world, but it's going to be a tough season to find success. Maybe they prove us all wrong and they blast out 3-0 and we'll totally change. And I'll totally change my tune and start talking about this in a different context. Happily. I'd love to see that. But Sam Darnold, who knows he's not the future of the Vikings, it's JJ McCarthy. They've been very clear about that, both, in public and behind the scenes. He is here auditioning for another job and is not going to be a job with the Vikings. But if he plays well enough, he goes and gets starting QB money somewhere. Like there's millions of dollars on the line. So like every one of these games is going to be Sam Darnold's Super Bowl. And I think the team can rally around that a little bit, right? Like, can this be the let's get Darnold paid year? Come on, Sam. Give us a year that looks okay, right? And win-loss record out the window, who cares? They could be 5-12, they can be 12-5. If Sam Darnold plays well enough because he's throwing to Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson whenever he comes back, and behind a line we feel okay about at least the tackles. If we can give him those surroundings and then have all of that God-given talent that made him drafted 3rd overall, and a little bit more of the maturity and development done that the Jets didn't let him get done. By the way, a great article from Alec Lewis, friend of the show, came out at The Athletic about Sam Darnold kind of understanding this as his reclamation year, as the rebound year, as the, hey, look what I actually can do. It was actually all the Jets' fault year. Like, that's the narrative that would come out, right? If Sam Darnold just balls out, it was, oh, well, that was just Adam Gase's fault then, and maybe Sam Darnold wasn't the problem in New York at all. And on that logic, he goes and gets paid. Like that's what we want here, right? Like that would, for me, constitute this was a good Vikings season. Or at least this season beat my expectations or whatever, however you want to put that. And that, what a noble goal. Let's get Sam Darnold paid. And key to that, biggest key to the game here is Sam Darnold taking care of the football. He's spoken about this in the past. He's reflected quite a bit on his time with the Jets. You can listen, by the way, if you want to go back in the archives to the Everyman series entry on Sam Darnold, where you can hear a lot more about what was going through his head at the time, the way he talked about it at the time. You could kind of tell what was going through his head and how it's different than the way he's talked about it in the last couple of years now that he's a little bit removed from that Jets disaster tenure. But he's, in his reflection on it, he says, he was trying to be hero all the time. He was trying to be... You're the quarterback. You're the guy, right? Like you're the dude of dudes in this system, and you're expected to take this franchise to the promised land. So the fact that he would try to do everything himself, he would force balls into windows that were in hindsight absolutely stupid. Totally need to check that down, throw it away, live to fight another day. That's something that he is reflected on. And to hear Kevin O'Connell then echo that, like this is stuff he would talk about like in the offseason or when he was with the San Francisco 49ers on the media trail in some random podcast he was doing that offseason. And so to hear Kevin O'Connell then sort of echo that and say, well, what we're working on with Sam is, the live to fight another day kind of gene. The you don't have to eat it all in one bite kind of deal. You can throw this away. You can punt after a completion. That kind of stuff to sort of force a little bit more conservatism into his game and get him to prioritize protecting the ball. If that works, then the rhythm, the timing, the rest of the offense, the times when you don't need to make that decision will be able to shine because they aren't ruined by the interception you threw on the next play. That gets Sam Darnold paid. And I think Addison can be a really big part of that. Also, for those wondering, the DUI suspension, we haven't heard anything new on that. And I would assume that if that's going to be a next year thing. I wouldn't put it past the NFL to levy it, like drop it just right on his head in the middle of the season. But I don't think it's going to be that fast, I guess. It just kind of feels like something that's going to take a little longer than that. But who's to say? But it won't be week 1. He's ready to go for week 1. So he's going to play against the Giants. And that means that it's time to talk about a little bit of Grambling as well as your bold predictions all next. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for a small business, or maybe you just run HR for a bigger firm and you need to be hiring, we all know that's not the only thing you're responsible for today. That's not the only thing on your list. You have a million things that you're juggling all the time, and LinkedIn has a whole bunch of features that can help you get those hires done faster. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions and makes that process even easier and quicker. But the big draw of LinkedIn, of course, is that it's freaking LinkedIn. It's the biggest job place out there, and it's sort of beyond a job board. It's a social media, and 70% of LinkedIn users aren't actively looking for other jobs. So if you put your job there, which you can do for free, you might catch someone that's not even really looking for a job, but sees your job posting, realizes it's perfect for them, and goes out for it anyways. And that might be how you find that person. There is a reason that on LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks again to my hashtag everydayers who come hang out every single day. And you can now catch me on Wednesdays on Locked On NFL, the national show on the Locked On Podcast Network. They got 2. They got AM and PM. In the morning, you get Tyler Rowland. He is the madman. He's completely insane, and they bring me on with him on Wednesdays to try to chill him out a little bit so you can see me spar with him. And at night, if you're looking for something a little more chill, step into the barbershop with Tony Wiggins. Now, it's time to see what Vegas and the general public think of this Vikings-Giants game. It's time for the Zover-Under. The Zover-Under, it's a new Grambling segment where we talk about some of the major lines, all of this provided to you, by the way, by FanDuel, some of the major lines, prop bets, and things that help us get a texture of the Vikings-Giants game, get us a sense for what the public is thinking, and some picks as well. And at the end, I've asked you for a couple of your favorite prop bets for this game, and I had the Rabbits pick one of them, and we're going to show that right here on the show. So if you're watching on YouTube, you get treated to cute rabbits. If not, I will narrate for you. But let's talk just about the general lines first. Right now, FanDuel has the Vikings at -1.5 and the over-under at 41.5. So here's the implied result that Vegas is predicting. That would be like a 21-20 victory for the Vikings. That kind of tells us that Vegas doesn't have a great sense for who's going to win this game, but the fact that the Vikings are road favorites means that, the public thinks the Vikings are a better team here and just isn't quite sure how to handle that with home field advantage and are just barely leaning toward the Vikings. That over-under, I think, is underestimating both of the quarterbacks in this game, and I think more severely overestimating the defenses in both of this game. 21-20. That's where you go. You look at Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, and say, those guys can't really score. Let's do it. I'll take the under. But both of these secondaries are in trouble with what you heard from Pat Traina yesterday and what I've been talking about all offseason with the Vikings. Both of these secondaries, I think, are mismatches against the wide receivers they have to go up against, right? Like, everybody's very excited about Malik Neighbors. Everybody, of course, knows how good Justin Jefferson is, and so if the secondaries are perceived weak points on either other team, then a little bit more scoring, I think, can be expected. So I like the over there. And then there are a couple of other props that I actually really liked here. So the Justin Jefferson line on FanDuel is ridiculous right now. It's 83.5, and I actually like that so much that I went into the alts because I wanted to juice it up a little bit. And if you get 90 or more yards, so 89.5 basically over for Justin Jefferson, that's actually plus 108. That's better than twice your money. So I actually almost like that better than the line. But if you'd rather be a little more conservative, 83.5 for Justin Jefferson, still something that I like a lot at minus 114. That's the one I picked for the Minnesota football party, which after what they did to me with the spicy wings, that is a very important pick for me emotionally. So that's the strongest endorsement I can give it. A couple other interesting ones that all kind of go with this vibe of like, I think the market is underrating just how much offense there's going to be in this. Jordan Addison, longest catch, over 19.5. Addison is a boomer bust player. He is a break that thing forever kind of guy. He is not a yak guy, or at least that's not how they use him. I'm sure a tunnel screen to him can go pretty well, but that's not how they use him. They want him running posts. They want him running 15-yard basics and trying to get upfield and do stuff after the catch. He has been working very hard this offseason, and by all accounts, we kind of stopped talking about this after he got in trouble, but by all accounts in camp, he looked better. He looked like he had taken a step forward. So we'll see if there's proof of that. And that's why I'm not looking at overs for him for receptions or yards or anything like that. But I think I feel pretty good about putting him down for one big long one chunk play, 20 yards or more. The other thing that I think offensively is going to happen a lot, if we think about this Sam Darnold vibe of maybe he's a little more conservative and maybe he's encouraged to just dump it off to the running back a little bit more or throw it away a little bit more. Aaron Jones's receiving over-under is at 12.5. That could be one check down in a 2-minute drill that he runs for 14 yards to set up field goal range. That feels easy enough to get with one, but I do think there's actually going to be a reasonable amount of checking down. I wanted to take, FanDuel didn't have a reception lines for him. I wanted to take that, but I will absolutely happily take 12.5 receiving yards. Plus, there's going to be a screen or something here or there that I think all goes to him. So I could definitely see that. The only way I get smoked there is if Ty Chandler's the one in the 2-minute drills, but I kind of don't think so because of the pass pro problems that he's had in the past. I don't know if I think they give him one drive middle of the second quarter where everything's a little bit more standard and not super crucial moments like end of half or end of game drives. So over 12.5 receiving for Aaron Jones. I like that a lot. And then on the Giants side, Neighbors' over-under is 59.5. I don't know what to take there. I'm not going to make a recommendation for it, but I think that tells us a little bit. And part of this over-under is trying to learn what the market thinks of the Vikings and the Giants by setting it Malik Neighbors at 59.5. That's pretty aggressive for a rookie's first game. That's saying that the general public expects Malik Neighbors to be a star right out the gate and to really be the premier weapon of the Giants right out the gate. It's a lot of pressure on the kid, who's going to be probably rushing against a lot of zone coverages. I think it's going to be hard to get him deep because of how much Flores likes to blitz and how conservative Daniel Jones likes to be against the blitz. It'll be difficult to find him unless you're going to do 3-step drop and go route, which you could find against somebody like Stephon Gilmore. And that might be the Giants' best chance to rack up those Malik Neighbors yards, is to just find a one-on-one 3-step drop go and hope you catch the Vikings in a blitz and single coverage. But outside of that, I think it'll have to be a volume game for Neighbors. So maybe a receptions over or something would be better there. But I thought 59.5 was an interesting one. You guys sent me some bets too, some things you wanted me to make the Rabbits pick. So the one I am having the Rabbits pick comes from Minnesota Sports Appreciator, who wanted to know if the Vikings' first drive would be a punt. It's an even plus 100, perfect 50-50 odds. So what a great way to start. And here's the thing about trying to get the Rabbits to pick. They are mercurial, and sometimes they don't cooperate. So when I first put this bet in front of them, ZD ran out and pushed the plate all the way off of the castle in a full rejection of this exercise. This is what they do. Sometimes that's a game that they play where if you put something in front of them, they'll throw it. And that is, I think, what ZD thinks is going on here. So I tried from a different angle. He jumped down and still just sort of rejected the entire exercise. He pushed the plate away And then eventually he just sort of ran away and said, I'm not really into this at all. So I thought, you know what? Maybe that's the rabbits telling us you shouldn't be making this bet. You should just let the Vikings first drive result ones go. And those ones are not the best EV and aren't necessarily the best. Like, those are probably safe ignores most of the time. So I thought, you know what? Maybe they just want something that they're used to, which is just like taking the spread straight up. Vikings -1.5, Giants +1.5. And we'll see if I can get them to pick that. I also put some digestive herbs on there, which they actually really like the taste of those to make me try to help encourage them to participate here. It's also very important for them. They're shedding right now. It's very hot out, and that hair can wreak havoc on their digestive system, so it kind of helps them work through that and process that. But after a little bit of thought, ZD ended up taking Minnesota -1.5. So ZD feels good. Zoe, on the other hand, completely rejects the idea of participating in any of this. So I tried to put the both of the pieces of lettuce back in front of her. She sniffed both and had some idea, and then just like super decided she did not want to participate in this at all, which sometimes they just aren't in the mood for lunch. Sometimes they just want to sleep, and they tell you that they would like you to go away, and they don't really do anything. She will do this, and sometimes will decline to pick a bet at all in any way. But usually when that happens, I take that to mean that she thinks the game will be very bad. And hey, Vikings Giants, that's not a bad prediction. So I'm going to call this a call for the under 41.5. That's what I think Zoe is picking here by essentially staring directly at me and saying, no, I don't want any part of this. And ZD eventually just came in and started eating the rest of the lettuce. Zoe turned around. I figured that was basically the end of it. That's the over under. So send me bets, specifically prop bets with even odds that you like, and we'll see if Zostradamus can get it right for you. In the world of daily fantasy, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's the best place to find daily fantasy sports. Just pick 2 to 6 of your favorite players and whether they'll do better or worse than their PrizePicks projection. Mash it all together for a bigger payout. And right now the payouts are insane. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Part of that is that you can add to any of your plays 1 Caleb Williams passing yard getting you 1 win on PrizePicks. All he needs to do is get more than 1/2 of 1 passing yard, so 1 or more passing yards for Caleb Williams, and it gets you a win. So you can toss that into anything and up your payouts. And here's the other thing. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with injury insurance. So your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, your PrizePicks picks are still live. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly just for playing $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Now we got the serious stuff out of the way. It's time for some bold predictions. Everybody's favorite part of the week, my favorite part of the week, because you guys get so gosh darn weird with it. We actually are spicing up our bold predictions. We are going to be tracking season-long bold predictions all year long, and we've already lost 2 of them. Unfortunately, Deck with 2 C's said that J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold would tie for passing yards. Technically, this is still live if Sam Darnold is abducted by aliens before he throws a pass or gets hurt on the first player in warmups or something like that. Technically, tying for 0 would hit. But the second Sam Darnold gets a passing yard, this one will be out. And the other one that's pretty broken came from Vikes Notes, who said that Kene Nwangwu would break the single-season kick return record, which would be 5 or more kickoff touchdowns. He is no longer a Viking, and I don't believe he is currently rostered anywhere, so that one looks pretty rough. I'm going to leave it up because you didn't specify that it had to be with the Vikings, so if he signs with the Jets and then breaks it there, I'm giving this to you. But a couple of these already immediately not looking great, but that's the point of a bold prediction. A great bold prediction shouldn't win. It should only be fun to track. And that's what I'm really looking for. I'm looking for something that's realistic, right? Some of you said, J.J. McCarthy takes the field. Well, that's not real. That's not even legal. That can't happen. But some of you did a really good job of perfectly straddling the line between plausible and probable and giving me something that was both fun to track, funny, and also that perfect amount of bold. Minnesota Sports Appreciator gave me a great one that said Vikings rookies score more touchdowns than Giants rookies. That basically requires a defensive touchdown and no Malik Neighbors touchdowns. And also no like Tyler Nubin weirdness or anything like that. But you need like a fumble recovery touchdown from Dallas Turner or something from one of the undrafted guys like Taki Taimani or Dwight McGlothern, who I don't know if those guys will even dress for the game. And it sure does imply a very, very like funny thing. And I love what I love about this prediction is that would be the headline of the game. Like if this hits, it would be the most remarkable thing that happens in the game. Like that is a great way to tell if you're being bold enough and if you're being creative enough. You know, a big stat line, that's not necessarily the head of the headline of the game. If you just give me Justin Jefferson 250 yards, okay, well that's bold. That's quite an over to hit. But it wouldn't really, like that would be a headline of the game, but you probably talk about Darnold that day. You probably talk about the defense too. But if you get more defensive touchdowns from Vikings rookies than offensive touchdowns from like Malik Neighbors, that would be like a thing that you would talk about. Milo Grams says that the Vikings will score all of their 20 plus points after there are 20 minutes remaining in the game. So that means they need to be goose egged until there are until there are 5 minutes left in the third quarter. Then he says this will lead them to win by 10 plus points. So there's a lot of specificity here. You basically need to be down like 10-0 and then until 5 minutes left in the third quarter. And then you need to like pop off 3 touchdowns at the end. Very much can imagine that happening, but boy, is it bold. Chris says that Aaron Jones will have a higher average yards per carry than Daniel Jones's depth of target. That's really hard for a running back to get that. Like even a terrible depth of target is 5. That is hyper conservative offense. And 5 yards per carry is like really good. Like it would probably rely more on Daniel Jones being hyper conservative than on Aaron Jones having this crazy run game. But what can happen here is outliers. 180-yard ripper that just like one big touchdown on one stupid mistake that the safety made or something like that can totally break the yards per carry, especially if his game is cut short for any reason, or if he rotates more with Ty Chandler than I think he will or something like that. There are all these little factors that can up your odds here, but it's still really, really hard to get that one done. Ryan says that no offensive points will be scored. All points will be special teams or defense for both teams. This one is pushing the envelope of like, well, that's probably not just not real. It's probably too silly to be fun to track. But Vikings-Giants games have a history of this. And we also have 2 turnover-prone QBs. So this does like still drive at like a vibe of the game you're going for. And if you want a really good way to conjure up a good bold prediction, and I put out the call on these on Thursday mornings, by the way, on my Twitter at Luke Brown NFL. So go there, or you can like email them to me or whatever if you think you have a good one. LockedOnVikingsPodcast@gmail.com if you don't have Twitter. But a good way to come up with one is to think about what's this game going to be like just like come up with a vibe. So Ryan's vibe here is, okay, we're going to have a lot of turnovers. We're not going to have any offensive production. We're going to be giving the ball back and forth. And then you come up with an extreme way for that to go down. That is going to be a great way to make these kind of creative. And you're not just going to say, Jordan Addison, 300 yards. Like that's kind of boring. And it's a number that's too unrealistic to be fun. Alex Anger says that Will Reichard's first kick is a double doink. This would be a lot funnier if it were against the Bears or Saints because of the history of double doinks recently that they've been on the wrong end of. Or I guess Eagles, since they were on the right end of one. But we'll still take it against the Giants. Still very funny. Of course, everybody's so excited about Reichard. Drill Reichard, somebody called him. I'm adopting that. Double doink would be a very funny way to do it. But also, you didn't specify if it has to go in or not. So any double doink, whether it counts or not, will hit here, but it has to be the first kick. And if it's an extra point, that's pretty hard. Final one I'm going to do here comes from Oatmeal Raisin Cookie Fan, who says Ryan Wright is the first Vikings player to get a fine for a hip drop tackle. So I will not allow this to be a season-long one. This will have to happen in the first game because this is the week 1 ones. If you wanted that to be in the season-long ones, it would have had to be to have been accepted in that. The only ones I'm tracking season-long are the ones we already did earlier, which just for transparency, I'll remind you, Sam Al-Gaib said that Sam Darnold would win MVP. Vikes Legend said that the Vikings will get 4 All-Pros named Jefferson, Metellus, Ivan Pace, and Darisaw. Eric the Red said that Sam Darnold will beat the Vikings as quarterback for another team. That one also not looking great, but still technically alive. Milo Grams said that 3 different Vikings would throw a TD, but only one would be a quarterback. That one actually got better because this was all before JJ McCarthy got hurt. So that one actually got better because now clearly you're only going to have one quarterback all year. So you just need 2 trick plays. Hiort said that John Parker Romo would get signed to another team, win the starting job, and then beat the Vikings with a game-winning field goal. I don't think he is signed anywhere, but you're still technically alive. Kickers get hurt. They get sick or whatever. Vikings coverage Skull said that Bynum would lead the league in picks. Love it. Casey the Coolest said that the Vikings would win every one of their revenge games, which he listed which ones those are, so we've got nice specificity. And Skull Ross said that the Vikings will win all of their games that fall on odd number dates and lose the games that fall on even numbered dates. Sunday, September 8th is an even numbered date, so I guess the Vikings would have to lose or this one gets eliminated right away. There's your bold predictions for week 1. Yours over-under for week 1. We're all set. We made it. Next time we talk, there will be a Vikings game, so you can find the postcast. The audio will be up on the Locked On Vikings feed, but you can also find it on Locked On Minnesota Sports live YouTube page. So go to the YouTube page, go to live right after the game. You will find a postcast, me, Sam Ekstrom, Luke Inman, and Ron Johnson breaking down whatever horrors the Vikings give us. But we're here. We made it. Time for a Viking season. Time for the Get Sam Darnold paid year. I'm into it. I'll see you all on Sunday, and as always, Skol.